On International Women's Day, Netflix released Moxie. Directed by Amy Poehler and based on the YA novel by Jennifer Matthew, it follows Vivian, a 16-year-old high school student in her journey to find her voice as a feminist. The movie reimagines the Riot Grrrl movement from the early 90s in the form of a teen drama, in order to talk about how the new generations experience feminism. But it falls flat in some aspects. So, join me and let's explore how Moxie reimagines Riot Grrrl. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like movies, video games, books, and that kind of stuff. Help me grow this community where we all love movies and are depressed. Oh, and spoilers ahead. The Riot Grrrl movement was born in the early 90s as a rebellion against the way in which the upper masculine and misogynistic punk rock scene, which was transforming into grunge, mistreated and neglected women, who were often assaulted at shows, pushed at the back of the mosh pit, and not taken seriously as artists. In response, women set up to create a space in which they could express themselves freely, in the form of fanzines. Do-it-yourself type publications used to spread punk culture and to rebel against the establishment. Bands like Bratmobile and Bikini positioned themselves at the head of the movement. The latter's song, Rebel Girl, became an anthem of sorts. By the end of the 1980s, the mainstream media would claim that feminism was dead, and with many hate crimes against women happening at the time, the Riot Grrrl movement arrived at the start of the third wave to revitalize the feminist cause in the form of intense female rage and declarations of girl power. Not only that, but it also sparked a musical revolution that has influenced many artists to this day, the most popular being Kurt Cobain, who was a friend of Bikini's lead singer Kathleen Hanna. She actually is the one who wrote "Kurt Smells Like Teen Spirit" on Kurt's apartment wall, which was the inspiration for the song that catapulted Nirvana to the mainstream. Yeah, as Hannah puts it, Nirvana was born from feminist punk rock. Very cool, huh? In 1991, the Riot Grrrl manifesto was published in the Bikini Kill fanzine. Here are some fragments. Because us girls crave records and books and fanzines that speak to us, that we feel included in and can understand in our own ways. Because we see fostering and supporting girl scenes and girl artists of all kinds as integral to this process. Because we are angry at a society that tells us girl equals dumb, girl equals bad, girl equals weak. Because I believe with my whole heart, mind, body that girls constitute a revolutionary soul force that can and will change the world for real. These are what I consider to be the basics. I'll link more videos in the description box and the complete Riot Grrrl manifesto. I also recommend watching The Punk Singer, a documentary focused on Kathleen Hanna. But in conclusion, Riot Grrrl was a movement that women started to oppose intense forms of sexism and misogyny, and the characteristic angriness of its leaders was very inspirational for women. It was all about creating safe spaces for all girls to coexist and share their ideas with each other without being mocked at or pushed aside. It was a declaration of girl power and female rage whose influence is still relevant. Vivian's journey to find her feminist voice begins when a group of popular jocks releases a list on the internet categorizing all the women under sexualized and derogatory terms, which leads to a scene where a guy assaults one of the girls, and when one of them tries to complain to the school authorities, they dismiss her. So, as a result, and inspired by her mom's past as a Riot Grrrl, Vivian creates her own fanzine named Moxie, calling all her female classmates to protest against these behaviors and the system that allows them. In this way, the high school in Moxie becomes a microcosm of today's feminist landscape. According to film theorist Catherine Driscoll, both youth and cinema exemplified social change, the state of the present, and the prospect of the future. Teen films then, as tends to happen with cinema and other forms of art and entertainment in general, are a reflection of the culture that produced them, since each generation witnesses its adolescent ideas and expectations, its fantasies and fears, presented in the images of youthful characters coming of age. So, because feminism has gained traction over the past decade, Moxie is one of the many examples of teen dramas that grapple with it as a part of their narratives. This isn't new though. According to film theorist Timothy Sherry, teen films of the mid to late 1990s began looking at sexual orientation, gender discrimination, and the postmodern nature of teen films in general. And of course, the rise of third wave feminism and the impact of Riot Grrrl in representing female rage influenced cinema directed to teenagers. Movies began to portray characters which fall under the label of tough girls. These tough girls became conscious of their challenges to gender norms, and they often employed an assured aggression in expressing themselves.
Expressing my opinion is not a terrorist action. The way you expressed your opinion to Bobby Ridgway? By the way, his testicle retrieval operation went quite well, in case you're interested.
This aggression was presented in film in the form of acts of delinquency. One movie, for instance, called Girls Town from 1996, presents a diverse set of female characters which include a single Latina mother, a white girl, and two African American girls. After finding out that one of them was raped by the high school football star, they set up to get their personal vendettas in the form of vandalism and stealing. I want to make a note here that I couldn't actually find this movie, so I'm just quoting from what I read about it on Sherry's book. If any of you by chance knows where I can watch it, I'd really appreciate you telling me in the comments. Anyways, moving on. In this sense, the acts of these girls are all motivated by a realization of their inner anger and a resolve to stop tolerating their teenage plights, especially those imposed by men. Sound familiar? The inciting incident in Moxie is an act of misogyny and a girl's angry reaction to rebel against the system in the form of protests that are oftentimes considered vandalism. So yeah, Moxie is not only a movie that tries to go back to the spirit of the Riot Grrrl movement in the old times of third wave feminism, but it is directly influenced by the popularization of feminist discourse in teen dramas from the late 90s.
Who took the bomb?
Upon the release of the punk singer Lena Doss, music journalist and culture critic, published an article called Why I Was Never a Riot Grrrl, in which she declares that as a black woman, she didn't feel included in the Riot Grrrl circle because her experiences as a woman of color didn't align with the denunciations of the movement. She writes, I would have almost begged to be seen as a woman back then, but my ethnicity trumped my gender. And she even goes as far as to say that the women within the punk scene were capable of being just as exclusionary and bigoted as the men were. And among the white women I knew who identified as feminists, there was a strong sense that there was little to no concern as to how ethnicity made my experiences as a woman different than theirs. What this reveals is that although the Riot Grrrl movement was all-inclusive, it still was led primarily by white and middle-class cisgender women, and threw the rest inside the same bag. Moxie tries to address this by having Vivian's mother, portrayed by Amy Poehler, tell her that back in the day she and her friends made a ton of mistakes, like not being intersectional enough, a term which, in the context of feminism, means that even though we are all women and we are all affected by the patriarchy in some way, we don't suffer the same levels of oppression. A white heterosexual woman, for example, won't experience the world in the same way a trans woman of color does, and therefore feminism won't mean the same to both of them. In its attempt at reimagining Riot Grrrl, Moxie tries to correct this lack of intersectionality by including a diverse cast of actors to portray characters with different identities. One of them is Claudia, a second-generation Asian immigrant and Vivian's best friend. She is reluctant to join Vivian's cause for a good part of the movie, and when she is confronted by her friend about it, she tells her, "You don't know what's going on with me because you're white. I can't take the same risks that you do. Amy Poehler herself declared on an interview that the film's main theme is how the feminist movement has evolved through the years. The problem is that, in my opinion, I don't think this is enough to claim intersectionality. The movie does show a diverse set of identities, but in the end, it still privileges the perspective of the white, affluent, cisgender, and heterosexual girl.
One woman cannot stand in for all women, especially if that one woman is white and affluent.
Rather, the protagonist should have been Lucy, contrary to Vivian, who discovers feminism one night because she needs something to write about in her college application essay, and the next day she starts a whole movement. Like, what? Lucy has a lot of insight from the beginning and is very vocal about her feminist ideals, so it would have made more sense for her to be the one that started Moxie. She even had a better motivation, since her activism made her the target of Mitchell, the popular jock and the embodiment of everything that is wrong with the patriarchy inside the school. In fact, not a single one of the issues that Vivian and her friends protest against reference the specific ways in which each of them experience oppression. All of them are problems that these characters deal with because they are women. CJ, the trans woman, mentions that she doesn't get casted in the roles she'd like to in the school stage productions because she is trans. But they don't protest against that. It is briefly mentioned and then magically resolved at the end of the movie. Moxie seems to think that simply mentioning that non-white LGBTQ+ people have different problems in a couple of scenes is merit enough, and by doing so it ignores how each character's set of identities affects their lives. It is just throwing them inside the same bag, just as Lena Doss described her own experience with Riot Grrrl. If Lucy then had been the protagonist, we could have seen at least one perspective that does not limit itself to white feminism. In fact, that could have been done with any of the other characters really. But the movie falls flat in its attempt of portraying how the feminist movement has evolved through the years. Instead, it is taking us back again to the third wave. In the words of Lily Weiser, in Moxie, the grittiness and productive rage that fueled the Riot Grrrl movement of the 90s is nostalgically reimagined in the current moment, but like the original, this glossy reimagination oversimplifies the feminist mission and fails to adopt intersectional perspectives. Basically, Moxie is one of those movies that would be better if the protagonist had been any of the side characters. To conclude, Moxie derives from teen dramas of the mid-90s that portrayed tough girls and were directly influenced by the third feminist wave. It reimagines the female rage of the Riot Grrrl movement and its forms of protest against the establishment. But in the process, it makes the same mistakes by leaving the voices of minorities on the sidelines. However, if you were to ask me, I'd still recommend it. It is still a pretty enjoyable film with a killer soundtrack. My favorite scene in the movie is the one where the character of Emma, portrayed by Josephine Langford, better known for her role as Tessa Young in the infamous After series, comes out in front of everyone and confesses that she was raped by Mitchell. And although I have a problem with the way this was pushed until the final act to function as a plot device, which is a whole other rant, looking at how everyone supported her and shared her pain reminded me a lot of the feminist gatherings I assisted myself at school last year. A lot of girls were coming out about being assaulted by professors and classmates, and gaslighted by the school authorities when they tried to complain about it. And there we were, the rest of us screaming and yelling in support. That is what feminism looks like. And what Moxie does right is to represent that spirit. It can be a good start for teenage girls to get a glimpse at feminism, and maybe start their journeys to smash the patriarchy. Hey, if you're still there, thank you, I really appreciate it. It took me a while to upload a video because online classes are killing me and I've been going through some stuff. Also, for every video I upload, there are like 3 failed scripts behind it, and 5 times I have to record again because I changed my mind about something. So I hope you liked the result. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. What did you think of Moxie? Have you read the book, and if so, would you recommend it? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember that I have a Twitter and a new Instagram account where you can reach out to me and follow me to see updates on the new videos. I'll leave the links in the description box. See you next time!